Where you have more complicated tasks, I think what you'll have is AI augmented human analysts. And this is just, and I think AI augmentation is something that humans should be thinking about in pretty much every sphere. So I can just imagine there's going to be an analyst, they're using a tool, and the tool will have this probably built into it where they maybe open a cell in the tool, and the cell has like some kind of AI SQL generator. And there are some notebook tools out there like Count and Hex, which have this already. And the person, instead of writing a long SQL script themselves, they kind of describe to it what they want it to do. But because they know SQL and they know the tables and the data, when it generates the SQL, okay, they can quickly edit it to fix, because it won't do it right, but it'll have generated the, many lines of code that would have taken, I don't know, half an hour to an hour to write, and did it in, 3 seconds.
Hi, David. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Today, we're going to talk about AI, ChatGPT, talk about your company, Delphi. But hopefully, people can watch until the end to get to learn about those tools. Before we get to that, please tell everybody about you.
Hi, everyone, and thanks for having me. So a bit about me. I've been in the data space for 12, 13 years, doing different roles from like data analyst, data engineer, analytics engineer, a little bit of data science, and leading data teams at multiple organizations before finally kind of entering the land of startups and working in a few data vendors before finally today I'm working at Delphi, which is my startup, which I founded with Michael Urban. And so Delphi is a natural language interface for analytics, allowing non-technical stakeholders to ask natural language questions and get answers back with data.
Wow. So you founded Delphi. We have the website that I just pulled up right now. If you want, you have this video here where he's presenting Delphi, but if you want to go a little bit deeper, so people who don't know anything about data in a simple way, what's the benefit of using Delphi for them?
Yeah. So in the past, and this is what I experienced leading data teams, is that these data teams used to serve their stakeholders using things like BI tools, so Tableau, ClickView, Power BI, these kinds of tools.
Right.
And those tools, and some of the newer ones like Looker and ThoughtSpot, they have quite a high bar for users to know how to use them. And often those stakeholders, they wouldn't be able to serve themselves. They would need someone from the data team to come in and build something for them and share it with them, and that's actually how they'd get what they need. So they never really like self-serve for new things. They would always need help, and they might end up waiting hours, they might end up waiting weeks if they got anything at all, because data teams are often very constrained, and they just didn't have time to work on things, especially if those things aren't aligned with the company's main strategy at the time. And so that's one thing that Michael and I both saw when we were working in those data teams. And that's why when we saw what was becoming possible with large language models and AI, we realized that with that technology in conjunction with semantic layers, that there's this big opportunity for us to enable self-service analytics for a much bigger set of people than have had access to it before. So what would take them hours or weeks to get answers before, they should now be able to get the same kind of answers in seconds or minutes, Delphi is a machine, it doesn't go on vacation, it doesn't go to lunch, it doesn't sleep, it doesn't have a bandwidth problem. You can ask it as many questions, and all of your colleagues can ask it questions at the same time. So it just solves a lot of these problems for probably 80% of data work. There's still a deeper set of work that data solves, which can't be answered very quickly with AI, but
Mhm.
there's a big chunk which can be.
Wow, this is so useful. If you don't mind, let me play this video quick. If you want to
Yeah,
comment
sure.
after
Yeah,
that.
so this is Igor Lukanen from our partner organization Cube, showing Delphi on Cube, which is another semantic layer that we integrate with.
Wow. So this is really good. So you integrate Delphi with Slack. Is that
Yeah,
why,
so
or is it?
Exactly. So Delphi has started out as a Slack bot. The reason why we chose Slack, a Slack application, is because when Michael and I led data team, Slack was the primary way that people contacted us to ask for work. So we thought, well, rather than, slacking David and asking him to run a data request, you can Slack Delphi and ask Delphi to run your data request. We didn't want to interrupt someone's workflow. We just wanted to give them an alternative in that space. I think people do have a bit of like application fatigue. There are so many applications that you have to know how to use in a modern workplace that we didn't specifically want to add to that unless we had to. We have gone on to have a standalone web application, which we have now. And we also have an API so that people who want to use Delphi in their own embedded systems can as well.
Okay, in that example, he's talking about is an e-commerce small business, right?
Yeah.
So let's say I work for a company and then I want to use Delphi. So do I that mean he has already uploaded the database, right? To Delphi, or how's?
Yeah, so Delphi works with semantic layers. So what's a semantic layer? A semantic layer is a mapping between like real world objects like customers, revenue, orders,
Mhm.
and database structures, which could be like columns and tables and things like that. And so when Delphi actually interacts with the data, we don't actually touch the database. So you don't need to upload a database or anything.
Mhm.
What you do is you have your semantic layer, which you've deployed on top of your database, which has APIs. So Delphi will connect to those APIs and pull like the catalog, which is from the semantic layer. The catalog tells you what the semantic layer contains, and so all of your metrics and dimensions, and then Delphi will generate a semantic layer request to understand to actually query the data, right? That's how it works. So we don't actually ever really connect to data warehouses directly. We connect to semantic layers.
Okay. So now that you talk about semantic layer, I need to go back to it because I don't know much about it. A lot of people I'm sure watching don't know. So uh, let's say semantic layer 101 for beginners. So what
Yeah.
it is.
So a semantic layer kind of describes the world, right? So inside the business, like that e-commerce business, it's telling you about things like this is a customer, and a customer is defined, and it might have a description, it might have a label, but it will also say, oh, how do we pull the data for this customer? Well, that one customer is equivalent to one customer ID in this table, right? That's the kind of way it would define it.
Mm.
And then you can say, well, this customer has different attributes, like age or gender or something like that. And it will tell you how to pull those attributes from the data source as well. And then it might also say, oh, well, this customer has, uh, another characteristic, like, for example, let's say like a driving, like a car license plate, for example. And that's just one thing that the customer has, but the license plate is also then linked to a lot more data than just the license plate. It's everything about the car and the insurance and things like that. And so the semantic layer also defines how to join those two pieces of information together. So all the information about the car joined to the customer who owns the car, right? And that's kind of like what the power of a semantic layer can do is that all of that difficult technical work that you'd have to do, like if I was writing SQL to join the information together, and sum it and calculate and select it. That's all abstracted away by the semantic layer. You ask the semantic layer for what you want in real world terms, not database and table
Mm,
and column names. You get what you get what you need. So previously these requests were like API requests, which are relatively simple but aren't natural for a human to generate. And essentially what Delphi does is it translates that human request into a valid semantic layer request to answer the question. And yeah, I guess semantic layers are great. I'm a really big fan of them. For
yeah.
me, I don't understand how any organization working with data can really have like a single source of truth without having a semantic layer, because otherwise everyone can define things how they want.
Yes,
If finance want to define revenue one way, that's fine.
yes,
And
yes.
if marketing want to define revenue one way, they can also do it because there is no single place to define it. Then that's also the joy of the semantic layer, is that
Mhm.
it's a single audited version controlled place to define these things that are important to your business. And yeah, that's another reason. So there's many semantic layers out there today.
Mhm.
Some of the most famous ones are part of business intelligence tools. So for example, Looker's one is probably the most famous out there. It has something called Looker ML, which
Mhm.
is its semantic layer. Then you've also got Metabase, which is an open source tool, which has a semantic layer, and Lightdash, which is similar to Looker, but open source as well. And then you've got these what are called headless semantic layers. So they're not attached to a BI tool, they're just on their own standalone products. So DBT's semantic layer is like this. Cubes is also like this. AtScales is also like this. And so all six of those are partners of ours, and we integrate with their semantic layers today.
Wow. Actually, this is really good. So instead of having, like you said, anyone defining what is a customer, what is revenue, or instead of like doing all this SQL, you're always doing this join, with this table. So you build the semantic layer on top of your database, then it make life easier for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. And what I would say is that there is always a semantic layer, right? And so in the past, I've been the semantic layer because I
Yes,
remembered how to write the joins. I remembered which columns to sum and to use. And
yes.
now, but when you make it explicit and you put it in technology, then it's there for everyone to use and it's consistent for everyone to use.
Wow. Are these tools affordable or they're kind of expensive, like these semantic layer services?
So it depends. So if you were to buy something like Looker, which
Mhm.
has it as part of the BI tool, you could consider it that it was quite expensive. Like it's not uncommon for a typical organization to spend like over $100,000 on Looker. That's not uncommon.
Mhm.
But there are many other ways now. So Cube, as I said, is open source. So you could host Cube on your own infrastructure and it would work. And so that costs as much as it takes to do the engineering to look after it. They also have a cloud product which is much more affordable than using Looker most in pretty much every scenario. And then you could then use that with whatever you wanted as a BI tool or to use in your own applications as well.
Wow. Actually, this is good. I just yeah, I'm surprised like a lot of people not are not using this like semantic layer. It seems very, especially for a data analyst. I'm certified Google data analyst. I know how hard it is to, if you have a lot of data, right? Especially for big organization, multinationals, this makes sense, right?
Yeah,
It makes
I definitely agree. And like at scale, who's one of our really good partners as well, they actually serve some of these gigantic organizations who identify they have this problem and this need, and they use at scale as their semantic layer. So they've got like Fidelity, Toyota, Netflix as
Mhm.
some of their customers. So these are giant, 100,000 person organizations using them.
Wow. So let's get back to Delphi. If you want to do some quick demo for us, that would be nice.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
you can see
Let
some.
me share my Slack. Uh, can you see Slack?
Yes, yes, you can see it.
Yeah. So I'll just show, like, I think Igor showed quite a lot, so I'll stay quite brief. We've moved along a little bit since Igor recorded that video. Now, like most of our settings are now abstracted away inside our web application, but this is where you put in your Delphi API key, and there's a few configurations here, like who do you want to be the help contact? Because one of the things that we believe in with Delphi is that we work with data teams. We don't try and replace them. We don't believe that you can just replace a data team with AI.
Okay.
We can augment the data team. And so, we have the choice of choosing a help channel or help contact so that when your stakeholders potentially get stuck with Delphi, they can request help from this channel or this person. Then what happens is you would integrate your semantic layer, and that's pretty straightforward. You do that on our web application. I won't go into that right now, but you saw roughly what it looks like when Igor did the demo before.
Right.
It's as simple as getting an API key from your semantic layer. And then if we get into like actually using the product, Delphi is here like as if it was a person. So you can, even find out from Delphi, what can I ask about? And it will kind of show you, it'll give you access to the catalog. So you can click on that view catalog button. I won't do it now, and it will show you this is what's in your local semantic layer. So it will show you a list of explores. And then you can ask Delphi things like, and the great thing about this is you don't need to know the specific terms of your data team that your data team have used in your semantic layer. That's been one of the barriers to it, is that you still have to know the names of things, and I think
Yes.
that's made it a little bit less friendly to use. Whereas here you can really just speak naturally, and because we use methods like vector similarity to find similar metrics and dimensions to your question, it doesn't have to be exactly the same word. We can deal with the fact that revenue might be called sales inside your semantic layer, and that sort of thing.
Wow.
So let's see. Uh, which product has the most discounts? So this is like a typical kind of like e-commerce data set.
And also he's responding on thread. He's not creating a new he's responding well inside the thread.
Exactly. You can direct message Delphi if you didn't want to do it in a channel. We recommend doing it in a channel because then it's possible for people to come and help you.
Yeah.
Whereas if you do it in your own DM chat, it's not possible.
Right.
So Delphi has come up with an answer. It said this product has had the most discounts with 5 discounts. And so like you can even say, well, and it will show you the query that it's tried to run. This is what I mean when I say it doesn't generate SQL, it generates a semantic layer API request. This is the body of the request. It's asking for the specific looker model, a specific looker explore where it's found the fields it wants and chosen the fields. So this dimension, this measure, and sorted by the discounts count. Now, product ID isn't necessarily helpful. So let me see if I can ask Delphi to tell me the product name instead. So you can ask Delphi, you can get Delphi to refine what it's doing just by asking it, just like you would an analyst in your conversation with it. And if you are using a BI tool, yeah, so one thing that Delphi does that's really helpful, because it's using a semantic layer rather than generating SQL, is that it can tell you in natural language what it's doing. So here, it's because I've told it I wasn't happy with what it already ran, and I said, can you show me the product name? It's telling me what it's going to run. It's telling me from this explore, I'm going to pull product name and then count the number of discounts per product name and then sort it. And it's telling you this so that you can then have that interactivity with it. You can have an understanding of what it's doing, so it's not a black box. And then like, this is good. This is what I wanted. So you can train it as well. You can say, this looks good, and then it will go and run it, but it will also save the fact that you said that that was the right answer.
That's good. If you want to correct it, you can also correct, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably the database don't have
Probably
they don't have
yeah,
data
and that
product name.
it doesn't have product name, so it just had the ID, which is why it did that. Well, that's good. So yeah, that's in a nutshell what Delphi can do. We also can work outside of Slack in our standalone app, as I mentioned before, and via API.
Oh my gosh, this is really good. This is like writing a SQL query, but you speak naturally, right? Because it seems like, hey, tell me the best-selling product for the last month. It's like he's gonna do the semantic layer, but probably he's running a SQL query somewhere in there, right?
Yeah, so what happens is those semantic layers take those requests that are sent to like the request I showed,
Mhm.
and they then run SQL themselves on the data warehouse. But it's a SQL that they have it's very constrained according to their format and according to those requests. And so the other joy of that is that Delphi doesn't directly have access to a data warehouse. It doesn't need it. And that's also a really good security feature because a lot of people are concerned at this time about large language models accessing data. And, because of some of the slip ups that have happened, like with, for example, the famous Samsung one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good to know that Delphi is not going to access the database, just the semantic layer. It's good to know for security, like you said. So yeah, this is a good tool. It's a good tool. So for someone who wants to use Delphi, so I know the CEO, as a CEO, I know you don't like talking about cost. What's gonna cost them, and what, let's say, cost benefit analysis for them, and
Yeah.
and then what's all the steps? Do they just reach out to you guys and then you take it from there?
Yeah, so let me cover the first part. The cost.
Yeah.
I genuinely believe that it's going to be a net positive, like monetary benefit to any organization, but let me explain it. So Delphi, let's say, would cost right now, we have a couple of plans. So we have a starter plan, that's $500 a month for 500 questions. We're still early, so we're open to feedback on the pricing as well. The reason why we price per question is because we have unit costs from using the large language models anyhow, so it just makes sense for us to have a per question cost. And then we have the next tier up, which is like $2,000 for 3,000 questions, which is like a growth plan, and then enterprises negotiated with us. If you think about like cost benefit, and I've thought about this a lot because I was recently fundraising for Delphi, and this was something that was asked of me very often. The way I think about it is that there's a number of benefits. Currently, data teams have to buy a lot of BI tool seats, and they do this because the BI tool has been their way to serve data to users who have any really data need. And that could just be as simple as I need to pull a CSV once a day to put into Salesforce. Could be as simple as I need a chart to go in PowerPoint once a week. But all of those people who have those needs, the way they were given access is here's your BI tool seat. And those BI tool seats, especially for the more expensive providers, can be $1,000 a year per user. So if you have an organization with, say, 100 seats because you have, say, 150 people at your organization, that's costing $100,000 a year. And half of those seats are massively unneeded. They're just given because that's just your way of serving that person. So if you had Delphi, I actually think you can reduce your BI tool seats hugely. I think you could potentially have half because only really the top half are using many dashboards and using many features of the BI tool that they couldn't be served with Delphi. A lot of other people who just need a quick data pull, a quick graph, or a quick CSV could use Delphi instead. The other joy is the whole organization can use Delphi. We don't restrict on seats. We restrict on questions, and even then, that's it's a soft restriction in terms of spend. So that's like a big saving already. If you think that that size of organization, even on our growth tier, the cost of Delphi, let's say, is $20,000 a year. You save $50,000 of BI tool cost off the bat. Secondly, there's another cost. Data teams today are unnecessarily large in some ways, and that's because they have to have lots of junior analysts who act as a semantic layer for these stakeholders who all day long get pinged on Slack and pull data for them, either in a CSV or give them a dashboard. Now, this is not like those. It's rare that people like doing that work for a long time. It's good for junior analysts sometimes to do that, to learn the trade, but then it's actually not sustainable to have people continually doing that kind of work. They don't really want to do it. It's very expensive. So if you think like in that organization, this fictional organization of 150 people, let's say they had a data team of 6, and two of that team were junior analysts who all they did was answer these kinds of questions. Easily those junior analysts are going to cost $100,000 to $200,000. That's one area where I think actually Delphi could replace part of what a data team does, is that you could reduce that junior analyst headcount where they essentially do a lot of work that they don't really want to do. And then you're left with kind of helping Delphi where it's a complicated request and knowing exactly what data to use, or where it's a very deep request, because Delphi doesn't answer every question. So where a question is sufficiently abstract, where it's like strategic, and actually the question needs to be decomposed into many different pieces of data work and then joined up after, that's not something that Delphi or any AI would really be able to do very well today. And that's where you need your senior analysts to go in there, know the data, know their business, be great storytellers. But in those instances, I think the unit economics get flipped on their head, because often those questions are guiding, very expensive decisions that the company are going to make, and decisions they probably only make at most once a quarter, probably once a year. And if you think about the cost of those decisions going wrong, the cost of making those decisions, actually having a very senior human analyst doing the work makes sense. It's actually not a big cost. The cost is the economics is completely different when you're just doing many ad hoc requests of questionable value, right? That's where it's very expensive to have humans doing it.
Wow. So for people out there, like the data analysts who are scared, they're like, Delphi gonna take our jobs. What do you say to them?
I say Delphi's not going to take your job. I think Delphi's probably going to take away some of the annoying parts of your job that you don't really want to do. So like just being a data monkey and pulling stuff for people, no one really wants to do that. It's kind of like helpful maybe for a junior analyst to do that for a few weeks or months while they're learning, but that's it. And often what happens is they end up doing it for years, or never stopping doing it. And really, those analysts, what they wanted to do is to be useful, like consultative people in their business who know their business and know their data really well, can help tell stories with their data to help their business succeed. And I think Delphi frees those data people up to do more of that work. I also think there's like it's really interesting, like a pretty famous venture capitalist called Mark Andreessen recently wrote an article about why AI will save the world. It's a very bold title to his article. And I was about to read it thinking, oh, I'm going to disagree with lots of this article. I actually didn't disagree with any of it. It was all good. And one of the things he describes in there is this fallacy called the lump of labor fallacy, that if automation is sufficiently good to reduce the need for humans, that humans will then be left without work. And he went through history and said every time that has happened, like the Industrial Revolution, in improved farming techniques, the computer, the cloud, all of that stuff has never resulted in less work for human beings. What's happened is the price of products and services has dropped, and the demand then has commensurately gone up. And actually, it's usually meant more work has been needed, or at least the same. So I think, yeah, this fear that AI is going to replace people is unfounded, really, because it won't really replace people entirely. And it, all that will happen is that the demand for work will increase.
That's true. Also, when I was taking the Google Data Analyst certificate, I think they were having like a couple numbers about on-field data jobs. Like most companies have in the United States alone is almost 60 to 70,000 on-field data analyst jobs,
Yeah.
So there's a huge demand also. Like you
Yeah,
said,
that's the thing. There's already a shortage, right?
there's
There's
a
already a
shortage.
massive shortage.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
shortage, yes. And it's gonna be more because we're getting more into technology, more into AI. Um,
Yeah.
so maybe actually it's a positive thing, like you say, it's gonna make the data team more efficient, more useful, and more productive. And also it's gonna be a good idea to because a lot of companies cannot afford to hire a data analyst person, right? Or a data team. So it's gonna, having tools like Delphi is gonna give them, uh, the advantage of having data people without having a big team, right? For small
Yeah.
businesses, for example.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow. So data analysts, data science, where it goes, I know you're very so on your profile, very good on SQL, Excel, Python, or VBA. Um, so what are the importance of learning those tools as a data person, and how do you see the future of data science and data analysts?
I do think there are some core skills that will help any data person. So learning SQL is a very good idea for any data person, really. And then maybe learning some other tool which allows you to do things which SQL struggles with. So something like Python is helpful, or there's many other, or any kind of general purpose programming language as well is helpful. You don't have to. It's just one of those things that can make you a bit more effective.
Mhm.
I do also think that just learning principles and architecture is perhaps even more useful, because when you can reason about a system from outside it, it can really help you become a better data person and think about what's possible and what you should expect in a given situation. For example, let's say you were working on some event system and you're trying to understand, well, what is possible to have populated in an event, what fields could be in the event. And if you understand how the service which generates the event works and what data is available to it at the time the event is created, you can have a much more educated understanding about what you could ask for than if you didn't know how that kind of architecture works.
Mm, okay. Wow. Uh, Python is very popular. Are you Python or R? Which one?
I started with R, and then I learned Python, and I quickly dropped R.
Yeah.
Uh, I've recently actually decided that I don't even think that Python's necessarily, it's a very powerful language because it's got a lot of community support and a lot of packages, but it has problems in type safety because with Python you can have, functions which accept any type of variable and return any type of variable. And it's very hard to debug or understand what can go wrong sometimes. So other people would disagree with me on that, but I actually have moved towards like more strongly typed languages. So I've learned Go recently. I've learned Julia recently. Julia and Python are very similar, especially for a data usage point of view, except Julia is strongly typed
Okay.
and doesn't have some of these problems in, and it's a lot more performant. That's one of the problem I have with Python is it's not actually very performant. A lot of people use packages like Pandas very heavily, and
Yes.
Pandas isn't the most performant uh, package either. And if you think about the equivalents that exist in some of the newer languages like Julia and Rust, like they they are just much, much, much better.
Yeah.
But it's still, I think Python still has a really big part to play in the ecosystem, and it's almost like a good control panel language where it kind of orchestrates things happening elsewhere that maybe have been written in more efficient ways.
Yeah, you're right. There are a lot of we have a big community in Python, and it's a very powerful language. Yeah, the security part worries me because you can write a Python script and then you just run it and you don't know what's gonna do, you know. It's so, yeah, you have to be very careful with those Python scripts.
It's very interesting. Like as I mentioned before, the call, like I came to Las Vegas recently for Snowflake Summit, and during Snowflake Summit, they mentioned that they are going to allow Python functions to make external network calls. And I was really shocked, and I thought that's going to be causing a gigantic security problem for anyone that enables it. But I guess that's up to the team to use it well. I can just foresee it causing problems.
Yes, yes. Yeah, you have to really know what you're doing with those scripts. I think even email, like some email like Gmail, if you just send in a Python, a file .py file, they don't let you send it because even Google, they know you don't want to let those scripts going in the internet like this, you know.
Yeah.
Don't know what they're gonna do. Yeah, but it's a very powerful language. It's good for automation. It can automate a lot of stuff. And
yeah, it can do a lot. It's very powerful, and I think that's why it's so popular.
And now,
and it's very easy to write and learn.
Yeah, and now they have. I was watching another course taking another course at Harvard, like web programming with JavaScript and Python. So if you can combine those two, it's to create some web apps. that's also really cool. It's really cool. So
yeah, it's a really popular stack.
So do you feel like, because someone last today say, hey, I want to be a data analyst, but I have all these AI now coming doing data science, is that what's the future of data analyst? Because I don't know if the AI can do the data cleaning, right? Because data cleaning is very hard, right? If you download some, let's say 20 CSV files on the internet, and then you have misspelling, you have extra spaces, you have the date format in the UK is not going to be maybe the same in the United States, right? So there's a lot of data cleaning that goes into making sure the data is clean before processing. So I don't know if the AI would be able to do that. And you're going to maybe still need a data person to do that part. Also building the architecture, like you said, designing the database itself, right?
Yeah, I think there are some things in data engineering and data cleaning that AI can do very, very well.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, in Delphi, we allow people to schedule queries, and they can write the cron. It's essentially writing a cron expression, which is the schedule. That is written in natural language. They just say, "Oh, every Tuesday at 3 p.m.," and it will convert that into cron. It does it pretty much perfectly. I've never seen it go wrong.
Wow.
And because it's quite simple, what you're trying to do. And I think, with things like regex as well, like you can see it getting that correct a lot as well. So if you think about where you're doing like conversions because data's in different formats, I think it could do a very, very good job of that if it's framed properly, perhaps even better than a human. I think where it doesn't necessarily do a good job is where it can't, if you're looking at data and it's got missing columns or missing records, how would it know?
Yes.
It needs external information. That's where a human can reason about something and think, oh, well, I'm missing a channel, or I expected this because I saw it in this other system, and the AI may not have access to that other system, and it may not know to match things together. And those are the problems where I think it's too difficult right now for an AI to help. But there's a lot of things in cleaning which are more or less, standard, or where there's slight like string differences and things like that, which I think AI could do a very good job on.
So you can go at Online Campus School and subscribe here and hit the notification so you get notified anytime you upload new videos. We have very interesting content here. So feel free to go ahead and watch whatever you like. You can also check my courses on Udemy. This is one of my latest course, Solar System 101 course for all level. This is one of the
Hi everyone and welcome. I'm MD Jallo. I am an educator, a project manager, a data analyst about space and the long skills from public available information. Would you like to learn and refresh your knowledge about what is space? How big is space? About our solar system, about our own star, the sun, Kuiper Belt, the Earth cloud, beyond our solar system, with exoplanets and galaxies, planets, dwarf planets, moons in our solar system, and then learn about eclipses, asteroids, comets. I will see you inside the course. Ready, set, let's go!
So you can check that course if you like it, to learn a little bit about our solar system. And also I have other courses there. You can see here some other courses. The Ultimate Amazon Leadership Principle Masterclass, complete course on top 41 legit ideas to make money. A brief beginner's guide to gaming, a brief introduction about America. That's a great course also. Starting a business in America as a foreigner. Okay, that one also is a great course. Of course, the solar system course, one of the highest rated course right now on Udemy. Very hard. Make sure to check it out. All right, back to the video. Wow. Yes, that's a good point. Like missing values, that's happening a lot. Sometimes you have to guess as a data analyst yourself, you have to guess what's going to be there, or do some research. And misspelling, maybe the spelling is not correct, but as you are a senior person, you know what the spelling should be here. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can imagine with misspelling, like let's say it's a categorical field which is supposed to have 9 categories. Suddenly it sees a 10th category. It happens very rarely, and it looks like a misspelling. You know, 'cause AI is actually quite good now at understanding what when something looks like something else, because it's, you know, it does vector similarity usually and says, oh, this category looks very similar to this other one, which is which is the one that's used 99.9% of the time. Maybe this category shouldn't exist and it should actually just be renamed to the bigger category. I could see it doing that very well. Like that could happen.
Yeah. So would we have like AI analysts for the future, like AI data analysts instead of human analysts?
I think, like, obviously with like building something like Delphi, yes, I believe that for more simple to moderate tasks, yes, you'll have an AI analyst. Where you have more complicated tasks, I think what you'll have is AI augmented human analysts. And this is just, and I think AI augmentation is something that humans should be thinking about in pretty much every sphere. So I can just imagine there's going to be an analyst, they're using a tool, and the tool will have this probably built into it, where they maybe open a cell in the tool, and the cell has like some kind of AI SQL generator. And there are some notebook tools out there like Count and Hex, which have this already. And the person, instead of writing a long SQL script themselves, they kind of describe to it what they want it to do. But because they know SQL and they know the tables and the data, when it generates the SQL, okay, they can quickly edit it to fix, because it won't do it right, but it'll have generated the, you know, many lines of code that would have taken, I don't know, half an hour to an hour to write, and did it in, you know, 3 seconds. And then editing it takes much less than half an hour, and it just increases their productivity. The volume of stuff that they can handle is just much bigger. And I think that's like something to think about everything. So like for example, I use fireflies.ai for a lot of my meetings. Because, you know, in the past I'd write notes during a meeting, and now you know, it's good enough with its transcript and its action points that I don't feel the need to write notes anymore. And that's a multiplier on my time and my attention. And you can imagine, you know, every activity that you do becoming augmented by AI, and you just being able to do more of it or to do a better job of it. That's the way I think about it.
Wow. Yeah, that's really good. So if a company have like 10 people as the 10 analysts, right? they don't use in AI. 5 years from now, with Delphi, ChatGPT, all of that, maybe they're only gonna need 5 plus AI.
Yeah, but maybe they'd need 5 plus AI to do the workload they do today.
Right.
But I think if you get them to do that workload and with much less resource, they'll just be doing more things.
Yes.
They'll be doing maybe more valuable things. So you'll keep the 10 people, or maybe instead of the team of 10 with 5 junior analysts you got rid of, you keep like you have a team of 7 or 8 and they're very senior or staff level analysts who can do more more powerful things and can be more influential in their business. Like that's what I think could happen as well.
Yeah. Wow. So AI, let's get to it. ChatGPT just take the world like a storm, like, right? No one could predict like in 2023 we will be having all these AI tools. I think even not you, right? Because this is what you do.
No, like I said, I went to Snowflake Summit last month in Las Vegas. I went to the same conference the year before, and I'd never have predicted any of this. Never. I wouldn't have thought that this was coming. So
Wow.
that's only a year ago. Yeah.
This is a big moment. I don't think people realize how big this is. It's like the iPhone moment, or maybe better than that. Just it went like very quickly. In 7 days, we have 100 million people using ChatGPT, and it's so natural because you don't need to teach no one how to use it. It's just a chat box. Then you ask.
It's using the human operating system, right? Language. It's using that operating system, so any human can use it as long as they can use language.
Yes. Yeah.
That's like with Delphi, we found we didn't know. Michael and I don't speak other languages, but we got some friends to try it out in Spanish and Mandarin and Arabic, and it never struggled with any language.
Oh wow! It can talk multiple languages. I mean, it understand it. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. How do you see ChatGPT now? Delphi is using GPT4, right? So
we use a mixture, so you can choose between OpenAI's GPT4 or ChatGPT, which is GPT 3.5, or you can choose Anthropic's Claude or Google's Cody, and then we also host an open source model. I think we've tried like Falcon 40B, which is the one the UAE open source recently. We've also tried Llama 2, which is the one that Meta open source for commercial use just the other day, actually.
Oh wow. Wow. Okay. So all these AI tools, which one, how do you choose the best one, right? You have Google Bard, which is a big response to ChatGPT. Like I said, Facebook is coming there with their is Llama, right?
Yeah, Llama 2.
Llama 2.
Yeah.
So how do you choose what what AI tool to use? Let's say for someone out there who just try getting into these AI tools.
Yeah, I think it's tough
Yeah.
to know exactly how and why to choose which large language model to use. I personally don't think that's going to be a problem for people other than engineers for very long, because I think what's going to happen is that the AI is going to get baked into every other product. So like you saw this with Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference. They didn't really talk about AI. I don't think they mentioned it once.
They didn't mention it once. Yeah.
They didn't mention it once, but it was everywhere. Like
Yes.
they were talking about all these products that they were building and that we're going to do this, had this feature. And anyone knowing how deterministic systems work knows that that feature is not one of those possibilities, and therefore they're using a large language model.
Right.
So I think that's how, and I think Apple completely right in doing it that way for the normal public who aren't engineers, right? That's exactly what they want. They just want, oh, this is magic, right?
Yes,
It's just going to do something for me. Yeah.
You're right. It's going to be baked into every single product, so you don't have to even think about it. That's true. Except engineers or people trying to build companies like you.
Yeah.
Wow. So because when they started ChatGPT, no one was even close to them, right? Then a couple months later, Google came with Google Bard. I tried them both. They're very good in programming. If you ask them a SQL query or a Python script, they're very good. They don't get it everything right, but they get something good right. And also
I mean, almost certainly Google will catch up, right? At some point very soon, they're going to catch up to GPT-4. They have the people, they have the power, they have everything they need
So you
to do it. It's just time.
You think Google gonna catch up?
Yeah, almost certainly.
Yeah, because right now, yeah, Google Bard is becoming good. It's kind of, like you said, I think they're working 24/7. I don't think engineers there are sleeping right now,
Yeah.
Being an
We've
AI being an AI specialist at Google right now, you don't sleep.
But I think, before this happened, they were the ones leading AI, but they didn't have anyone to really, apart from maybe some teams in China or wherever, competing with them. And the things they were competing on were so like esoteric, like protein folding or game playing and AGI. They weren't like very concerning in terms of like real world commercial applications. And then suddenly, OpenAI's come out with this, and so of course now they've got a real incentive to push hard.
That's true.
Yeah.
Now they really wake up. And like you said, they have all the team. They have probably the best AI people in Google. Sometimes it's a little bit scary because they have all the specialists. If they wake up, they're gonna. Yeah, and
DeepMind. They got DeepMind in London. Yeah,
Google
probably
DeepMind.
the
Yeah,
best.
yep. And I think, like you said, they've been using it like Google Assistant, right? It's probably some large language, LLM behind that, but they were just going slowly. Now they can come out and say, hey, you see, it's not just us. We have OpenAI, we have Llama, so we are not not just Google.
And I think that may actually be helpful, in
Yes.
some way to them, right? Because
Yes.
rather than being told, be cautious, we don't want disruption to our existing business model. Disruption's here. Let's get on with it. That's what those engineers and researchers are now probably feeling a bit free.
Yeah. Yeah. And how do you see obviously AI is gonna be everywhere. Like some people started to pose AI, it was just a joke. It's not gonna pose like when the genie is out of the box, right? Now it's gone.
Yeah.
And how do you see GPT-5, GPT-6? Is it gonna be a point where it's really scary?
I actually think, and like Sam Altman recently said this, right? He said the era of just us building bigger and bigger models is kind of coming to a close. Because GPT-4 is already tremendously large, huge. And to train a significantly larger model would be so expensive and slow. And what I think will happen is, yes, there will be a GPT-5 and a 6, but maybe, and this has happened with GPT-4, like people, like recently they've made changes and it's got lots of smaller systems now inside it that are good at different things. And I think GPT-5 and 6 might just be like very, increasing the specialties that it's good at by an order of magnitude or two. So that's what I think, because I think them building just one giant model is so expensive and slow that actually building 10,000 smaller models that are good at different things is actually more realistic.
Wow, you're right. That's one of the things also to know. It's building an AI, an LLM is very expensive, right? You need a lot of computing power, right? CPU, GPU. It's not something not everybody can do it, right? Even if you are a specialist, but you need a lot of investment to do it.
Yeah, and just to get the GPUs is hard. I mean, so we host our open source model on the GPUs that with GCP. We're with GCP. We're on the GCP AI startup program as well, and so we have access to those GPUs. And that's only a tiny amount of GPU power. anyone who needs a huge quantity of GPU power, you're really struggling to even get that at the moment because it's just scarce resource. NVIDIA have already increased their production to as much as they possibly can, but that's not really going to change. It's very difficult to produce a huge amount more microchips quickly because of how slow it is to build the fabrication processes. So, not only is it expensive, I just wonder, is it even possible? Like, if you wanted to make a model 10,000 times the size of GPT-4, does that compute exist anywhere? Is it accessible? I don't know. Maybe not.
You're right. You're right. Yeah, that's good to know. At least that's gonna slow down things a little bit. Because this GPU is not it's not hard. How do you regulate AI? Is that something that
and again, I'll refer back to Mark Andreessen's post, but I agree with this. The thing about AI is it's not sentient at all at the moment. It's not like that. It's a system. You put inputs in, you get outputs out, and whoever's doing that is doing something. They're either acquiring those inputs, and the acquisition of those inputs has law, and what you do with the outputs has also got law. So AI is already regulated because the people who use it are regulated and the companies who use it are regulated. So I think we have to be very careful to understand whether, that's actually helpful to add more law. And I think that's why it's taking so long.
Right.
There's a big risk as well that if you were to make law about who's allowed to make AI, it's just going to play into the hand of the big companies who've already got AI, who've already got gigantic legal teams who can then comply with the law. And that's, you see that with the banking system, right? They've made this giant amount of compliance, and now you have these giant banks who are too big to fail and who control the whole market. And that will happen to any market which is regulated in that way. So I think that's my main thought, is that we already have law. Let's just enforce it. And if someone chooses to do something with AI that's brand new that we've not seen before, which I think is actually unlikely, it's just usually what people are worried about is scale.
Yes.
And I think doing one thing wrong or doing a million of that thing wrong is the same. It's the law still works. And you just get penalized commensurately for the scale. The other thing that's really good is, before with software, it's been difficult to then build software to prevent malicious actors. So, whatever that might be, firewalls or whatever else, in security tools, Cloudflare, whatever. That's been difficult, and there hasn't been the motivation for humans to necessarily build those things until there was a business case. With AI, I think it's actually easier to use AI to regulate other uses of AI than it has been before. Because AI is actually very good at spotting other AI at work. And it's automated, it scales to infinity. You can get an AI. Oh, you're saying you're worried that all of everything that goes on Facebook is going to be, 20% of it's going to be fake or fake news, which could already be the case anyway. You could apply AI to check every one of them, to check to see if it's AI generated, to check if it thinks it's true. You could do that, and it could do every single thing that goes on a social network, and it will scale to that, which is just not possible with humans today.
That's true. So we need AI to fight against AI. We need AI to regulate AI.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something to explore before going for law, I think.
That's true. Wow. Will AI become sentient at some point?
So I was listening to a podcast with Tristan Handy of DBT Labs and Bob Muglia, who used to be CEO of Snowflake. And Bob's like a pretty well-known guy in the industry, and very, he's done many great things at Microsoft. And And he said at the start, like, if you asked me 2 years ago when I think AGI will come, and he said, and says therefore sentient AI, he said, oh, I think, maybe the year 2100, and I don't care because, I won't be here. And then he said, like, after the last 2 years, and especially the last 6 months, now I think it might be 2030, and now I'm more interested because I could be here to see that, right? Um, I'm not sure because I feel like the difference between what we have today, which are just gigantic mathematical systems to take huge amount of input and generate output, like that, what we've got today is still very much within the realm of um, what we've been doing. It's just on a gigantic scale and with different methods, like the transformer method and the attention method is different, and that's partly why it's been so successful. But they're not. I don't feel like they progress us towards sentience in any way, any more than what we had before.
Wow. So if you would predict the future, like what are the jobs, let's say, because what are the jobs that gonna be transformed instead of saying disappear, that's what are the jobs that are gonna be impacted with AI? So if people need to prep themselves, with this new industry coming.
I think I would just say every job is. I would just challenge people, don't be afraid of AI. It's coming. Pandora's box is open. Number one, the other problem with regulation is if this thing runs on people's computers, it's very, very difficult. You can remember how well the government did at regulating torrents. They didn't do a very good job of it. And AI will be the same. It's stuff that's on computers. It's going to be very difficult to regulate. So it's coming. It doesn't matter who says what, it's coming. You need to start getting ready to adapt to it, and don't be afraid of it. Don't try and ignore it either. Think about, what do I do? What are the activities that I do in my day that could be made better, or maybe some activities could be entirely automated by AI, right? That's like and start exploring them, start playing with the tools and start seeing, oh, this tool is better than this tool. Because actually that's one thing that's really hard today, is actually knowing which AI tool is better than others. So like, I use Fireflies for note taking. I know other people who use Otter. I have no idea if one is empirically better than the other. I just know that I'm happy with the one I'm using, so I just stick with it. But I would love to know, like, let's say there was one for, I don't know, like corporate content generation, right? There are many AI tools out there now for that purpose. I don't know which one is the best one. And that's a problem as well, actually knowing which one to use. But you need to start exploring them. If there are a few tools to try for this particular activity that you spend a lot of your time doing, try them out. See if they can actually make you better.
Wow, that's true. Try to start embracing those tools. Ask yourself how to, like you said, if you like taking notes, find an AI note taker, because they're just here to stay. They're gonna be like a personal assistant for human now. And
yeah.
So you're both good in mathematics. Have a background in mathematics. You as well. And with the AI right now, do we still need people to learn mathematics, or the AI gonna solve all of them?
I think we will still need people to learn mathematics for a long time. I think what could happen is you'll have mathematical researchers who work with AI, and they'll say, oh, if only I could prove this equation, then I could continue and do something else, which would be more valuable. And they could say, okay, AI, you try and solve this equation, and the AI can try lots of different strategies, and it may be able to do it, it may not. And then if it can't, then the human can try. You can just imagine it working, as a co-pilot with them to try and help them solve things.
Yeah.
I can imagine it actually being very helpful as a teacher as well, because just the other day I was playing with one and I asked it to explain the difference between these two data modeling techniques, one called Star Schema, one called Snowflake, not the company, the actual, data modeling technique. And it did a fantastic job. It explained them really nicely. And because it's read everything out there, right? So I can imagine it being very good as a teacher, actually, or helping people learn things.
Yes. Yes, and hopefully in maths and physics, it's gonna help us solve those equations that we don't know how to solve.
Yeah.
Because as a math guy, there's a lot of equation there that's hard to solve, and maybe the AI is gonna be, help us, which gonna, create more innovation, because the more equation we can solve, the more we can innovate. So yeah, David, this is yeah, it was really good. Thank you for sharing this. Thanks for what you do with Delphi. For on a personal note, what do you do to relax? What do you do to balance it out?
Yeah. So obviously, like, founding a company is it's a pretty all-consuming thing to do.
Yes.
And there's never, I could work all hours of the day and weekend and not run out of things to do if I wanted to. But I have a young family, so I spend time with them a lot in what hours I have spare.
Nice.
There's one thing I've really started to enjoy doing is there are some other parents in the area I live in of similar age children who go to my kids' school. And I found out recently they run this board games night and they play like very complicated board games, like where if you're learning a new game, there's like a half an hour YouTube video to watch to learn how to play this game. And it's great because it's difficult, sufficiently difficult that I can't like be distracted and looking at my phone or doing anything while playing the game. Have to focus. And it's got no screen at all. Right? It's just cards and counters and dice and things like that. And that is such a you have that probably 2-3 hours of like one evening where that's what I'm doing. And it's a very good like break from electronic stuff and work stuff. I really appreciate it.
Wow, that's really good. Family time, board games. Wow, you're building your business, obviously very busy. So on a hopeful note, for someone out there struggling around the world, people having hard time, some people getting laid off at jobs, people, a young person in high school, in college, looking for meaning in their life. You're obviously a very successful person. So what message do you have for them? What hope can you give them to build a successful life?
Oh, that's a really hard question.
Yeah.
And one thing I would say that I wish I knew before is to learn how you learn. And I didn't know this till I was well into being an adult, like into my late 20s. So I went through school not really knowing how I learn personally. And I realized that I learn entirely by doing. I don't really learn through reading anything and like I can learn through reading something, but that's because I've got stuck on some problem and I need knowledge to unblock me. And that's when reading something and just that bit that I need helps me. And other people don't learn like that. So I know friends who just absorb a whole book and they're fine, right? And I can't work like that. And so I should never have really tried to do that and never tried to like revise in that way. The way I should have been doing things is doing unlimited questions, really. And that's how it would have gone in. And I just think like I wish I'd known that, when I was, 14. And I think that's like a thing that I would tell anyone to do.
Learn how to learn. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great advice. And there is a course actually on Coursera. It's a great lady. She has a course, Learn How to Learn. I would definitely recommend everyone to take it because knowing yourself, learn that's a good point. That's a great point. And yeah, and have your passion, build if you want to build a company, David is building
Yeah.
successful AI company today. Follow your passion and have fun out there. Hopefully learn some skills. Learning AI skills today gonna be relevant, I think.
Yeah, I would definitely encourage people like who are thinking about starting a business is you should try if you I'd say it's a hard thing to do, a very hard thing to do, but it's actually something that many people could do, and many more people than currently who actually do try to do it could do if they wanted to. There's just like ideas around how you manage risk and think about risk and fear of failure that you have to change your mind about.
All right. Thank you so much for being here, and hope we can do this again next sometimes. This was really awesome. Thank you for sharing about Delphi, doing that live demo, talking about AI. And you are the CEO of Delphi, and giving us some advice. Try to learn how to learn. And yeah, it was awesome. Thank you so much, and see you next time.
Great. Thanks so much for having me. It's been fun.
All right. Bye-bye.